Like the arcade games of old, Balatro has a kill screen, an unintentional ending, a point where the game won't let you progress any further despite proclaiming to be endless. Today I'm going to show you why this kill screen happens and how you can get there yourself. Shuffle up and deal, players. It's time for Balatro. Balatro has completely taken the world by storm. It's sold millions of copies, it's on PC, Switch, phones, PlayStation, Xbox, my god, it even works on Mac. Balatro is an addictive roguelike deck builder that rewards creative play with an endless mode that allows you to push the game to its absolute limits. But that's the thing, it turns out there is a limit. It turns out those endless runs of yours aren't actually so endless. And I don't just mean because you went up against the Psychic in Ante 12 and played a 4-card hand, and then had to call the Genius Bar to ask them if throwing your laptop through a 4-story window is covered under Apple Care. Before we understand how the kill screen works, we need to understand how Balatro works. In Balatro, your goal is to work up through the antes, each of which is comprised of a small blind, a big blind, and a boss blind. Every blind has a requisite score for clearing it, and those scores scale up as you move through the antes. There are 8 antes required to win a game of Balatro, but then you start endless mode at antes 9 and beyond. You score points by playing poker hands like pair, 2-pair, flush, 4 of a kind, and so on. The rarer the hand, the better. However, as you work your way through the antes, it becomes very quickly apparent that just playing hands won't be enough to get the scores you need. For that, we look towards Balatro's true core mechanic, the jokers. In between each round, you visit the shop, where you can change all kinds of things about your current run, including your deck composition, hand strength, and crucially, you can buy jokers. Jokers allow you to change the way the game behaves. Some jokers increase how much multiplicative scaling or chips you receive from playing certain hand types. Some jokers reward playing certain values of cards, like aces, 4s, or face cards. Some have passive abilities. Some change the way the shop behaves. It is with these jokers that we're able to change our hands from scoring in the realm of a couple hundred points to the millions and beyond. Now, to truly understand Balatro's kill screen, we need to understand how Balatro calculates score at all. In Balatro, all scores are stored as what's known as a floating point number, oftentimes just referred to as a float. You can think of any float as a number stored like this. We have the main chunk, known as the significand, the 10 is the base we're in, and then there's the exponent. You may already be familiar with formatting numbers this way. Remember scientific notation from your high school science class? Sorry to bring up bad memories. If I have, say, 4 times 10 to the 14th, this is like a shorthand for the actual number. If I were to display the actual number, it's 4 and then 14 zeros, or 400 trillion. The exponent on the 10 tells me how many 10s I'm multiplying the number by, and in base 10, multiplying by 10 moves the decimal to the right. Similarly, for very small numbers, like 4 times 10 to the negative third, I move the decimal to the left 3 times. In Balatro, 10 to the 14th is represented as E14, the same way a lot of calculators show exponents of 10. This E just means exponent. Now, to show you an example of a setup that can actually create exponentially scoring hands, I'm going to throw things over to the Balatro goat himself, Roffle. Take it away, Roffle.
Thanks, Adolf. One of the most common ways to reach scientific notation in Balatro revolves around 2 jokers. Baron, which makes each king held in hand multiply your score by 1.5, and Mime, which re-triggers all held in hand abilities. Now, 1.5x might not seem like a lot when we're talking about numbers in the trillions, let alone the outrageous scores possible in Balatro, but the repeated multiplication from several kings being held in hand and the retriggering from the Mime send your score sailing. The score each king represents can be expressed with the function 1.5 to the x raised to the y power, where x is the number of 1.5 multiples and y is the number of card triggers. In this example, we have 3 instances of 1.5x. One from Steel, one from Baron, and one from Blueprint Copy and Baron, and 3 triggers per card, one from the Innate trigger, one from the Red Seal, and one from the Mime, meaning each king represents times 38 to our score. With 7 kings in hand after playing a high card, you can see how this starts to add up. This type of exponential growth is often what is necessary to reach scientific notation and keep up with the aggressive scaling of Endless.
Balatro uses a floating point number storage format that's used by a lot of video games and computer programs, known as IEEE 754. Now, you don't need to know a ton about IEEE, other than there's a sub-version of IEEE that Balatro uses, known as binary 64. In binary 64, floats are appropriately stored as 64-bit integers in binary. 1 bit is used to denote the sign of the number, negative or positive, 11 bits are dedicated to the exponent, and the remaining 52 32 bits are used for the significand. But having a finite cap on how big numbers can be, however much we can encode with only our 64 bits of information, means there's a limit to what we can store. In Balatro, if you manage to take an endless run very, very deep into the game, you will eventually hit a wall. Balatro's kill screen, as it turns out, the point of no return where the required point scoring has scaled beyond the limits of floating point numbers we can store, is at ante 39. Just one ante prior sees required scores of around E288, but ante 39 simply reads NaN, or computer speak for not a number. Why? The largest exponent that can be recorded with 11 bits of binary precision is 2 to the 1024, or about 10 to the 308. That's the value at which Balatro and many other programs break. So when your score in Balatro goes above E308, the float just returns the exponent as EINF, or 10 to the infinity, or EINF, because it's overflowed past what the float is able to store, and that edge case simply returns infinity. Now, when you actually score above this limit, the score reads NaN EINF, or not a number times 10 to the infinity power. Where does this NaN come from? Well, when Balatro runs the code it needs to display your score to you, it divides the calculated float by just one e to the whatever to return just the significand. But if your exponent is already to the infinity power EINF, dividing infinity by infinity returns not a number, since you can't divide by infinity. That's why the score returns what Balatro players referred to as NaNinf. It's also why you can't pass ante 39. Even if you, while going up against a required score of NaNinf, actually do score NaNinf, the game will kill your run nonetheless. This is because you can't compare two numbers who are both just being recorded as not a number. They aren't numbers. How could you possibly state that one is bigger than the other? You can't. It holds no value. Not zero, literally no value. But how would you go about scoring this much? Remember, we need to score in the order of E308, or 10 to the 308th power. That's over 300 zeros. Well, there are actually a few methods to score NaNinf in Balatro. For that, we're going to throw things back over to Roffle.
There are a few different ways to achieve NaN-E-Inf in Balatro, and many of them rely on that same Baron-Mime-Joker combo from earlier, but now supercharged with Blueprint and Brainstorm, which can be used to copy the effect of other Jokers in your roster. This particular example uses Perkio, and those copy effects, to generate numerous copies of Cryptid, a spectral card that adds 2 copies of a playing card to your hand. As we saw earlier, more cards in hand with this build results in more score since it adds more instances or intervals for exponential growth. Obviously, this type of build doesn't come around every day, and especially considering the required legendary, which also must show up very early in the run to have enough time to scale, needs an absurd amount of luck paired with extremely precise piloting for the entirety of the run to pull off. Even then, this dream setup is no guarantee that you'll reach ante 39, as the blinds often scale faster than you can. That said, when you're ready to score NaN-E-Inf, you can start using copies of Cryptid until your hand size is large enough, usually in the range of 70 to 80, depending on the Jokers that you have. Once again, each king's score can be expressed as 1.5 to the x raised to the y power, but to have each king score as much as possible, you want to have the values of x and y be as close together as possible. In this example, we have 5 instances of 1.5x and 5 card triggers, so the current Joker position yields the highest score, or 25,251x per king, repeated 79 times for each king held in hand after a high card is played.
Many minutes later.
As you can see, once the hand finally finishes calculating, the round score registers as NaN-E-Inf. However, when up against any blind in ante 39, the scoring requirement is not a number, so even a score of NaN-E-Inf will not defeat the boss blind, and Balatro's kill screen pops up as soon as your last hand is played.
So get out there, players. Reach infinity. Score NaNinf. Break the game. Hit the kill screen. The Jokers are waiting. Thank you so much to Roffle for helping me make this video. He is truly the GOAT. He reviewed the script, he filmed and edited his own segments. I didn't even ask him to edit them. He's truly amazing. Many countless hours have been spent in my apartment just mindlessly watching his daily Balatro videos. Definitely subscribe to him. The link is in the description. You will not regret it. Thank you also to Math is Fun, one of the lead developers on the Cryptid mod for Balatro. They were instrumental in helping me understand how IEEE works in Balatro and why NaNinf happens. To that same degree, thank you also to Nova, one of the other developers, for the same reason. The Cryptid mod aims to take Balatro way above what was intended and adds some really wacky jokers, and actually uses some clever math and programming tricks to score beyond E308, so definitely check it out if you want to take your Balatro gameplay to the next level. Also, thank you to Kyle Hill and the members of the facility for allowing me to use their set to film this video. I wanted this one to look really special because it's very outside what I typically do. It's also why I'm wearing a jacket that I forgot to steam that's really poorly tailored and doesn't look very good. I do it all for you, gamers. Never say I don't care. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.